Hi everyone, welcome to Olive City Homestead. I'm Kim and it is April 2022 and it's finally time for a garden tour. I say finally because I've been meaning to do this for weeks, even months, but I have been quite sick actually. You can still hear it a little bit, I think, in my voice. It occasionally wavers and cracks, but I am so much better and really excited about showing you what's going on. There is another reason or two that I've been putting off doing the garden tour, aside from not really having a voice. And one is that we've had pretty chilly weather here, especially at night. Far longer than we usually do here in Northern California in Zone 9B, and that has affected my seedlings. A lot of my seedlings did not do so well when I transplanted them out into the garden. Some struggled and have made it through, though they're far smaller than usual at this time. Some did not make it, and I've had to start over, but that's okay. So that was one reason. And another reason is I always feel like there's just one more thing I want to do, one more little thing I want to touch up before I show you the garden. But that is so ridiculous because there's always, all year round, going to be another thing to do in the garden, in life. I mean, it's never ending, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, I've learned to see it as a really good thing because it's, provides interest to my life. It's something I love doing, and there's always something exciting around the corner. Is it going to make it? How's this going to turn out? What should I do next? I've actually added quite a few new plants to the garden this year. A lot of perennials, some that I've been looking for a while and was glad to finally find. And so I've finally decided today, you know what? We're just doing this. This is silly. I'm going to show you guys reality here. That's something I really strive to present here. I do not by any means have anywhere near approaching a perfect garden, if there is such a thing. Well, maybe at botanical gardens where they have, hundreds of workers working year round to make everything look great. But here at Olive City Homestead, I am the only one doing this 2.5-acre project. And I have some issues like rheumatoid arthritis and others that, on different days are more challenging. And so I take things as slowly and one day at a time as I can. And I am one of those people that have several projects going at a time. And that's because if I just had one, I would want to just focus in on it, and I would try to do it, 12 or 14 hours a day, every day till it was done. And that causes me to burn out. I used to do that kind of thing in the past. Now I have several things going at the same time, and I can pick and choose and do an hour here and an hour there and take breaks. And I have learned that that is the best way for me to go about doing my homestead and my garden. And I suggest you give it a try too. I tell you what, it certainly prevented the feeling of overwhelm or burnout. Instead, I'm always happy to get out and do a little bit here and a little bit there and see the progress being made. All right, that's enough chitter chatter. Let's get going and see what is going on in the garden right now, what's doing well, what's still struggling, and what my plans are, what is in progress, or what is still up here, but I'm gonna get it done soon. And yeah, I love to have you interact with me, so please tell me what you've got going on in your garden right now too, down in the comments below. All right, if you haven't been here for a while, or this is the first time you've visited my channel, my garden is on a slope, a gentle slope, but definitely a slope. And right now I am facing the west, and you can see a very large non-fruiting mulberry tree there in the center that I need to get up in the next week or so and prune back some of the branches that have grown out toward the garden, because it's causing just a little bit too much shade back there a little too early in the afternoon. It's a chore I do every year and definitely need to tackle very soon. Now, before we start looking at the herb garden and the garden beds in front of us, let's turn and look at what's behind me. All right, over here next to the chicken coop, I have some containers, which I need to level, but basically nothing much in them right now except seeds that I've direct sown. These are some bush beans and some runner beans at the back next to the fence. Some walking onions, Egyptian walking onions that I need to clean out and take the tops off and plant. This is going to be a running commentary you're going to see and hear throughout the tour because I have walking onions everywhere. I have a bunch of peppers planted in these containers here. And in the bed right next to the fence, I have runner beans planted along the fence line on both sides of those iris. And in the front of the bed, I have pepper plants, all kinds of pepper plants. Jimmy Nardellos, what is it? Buena Mulata, Georgia Flame. I've got a little blank spot here for some Chilean peppers and maybe some Aurora peppers. And look, 2 of my seedlings that made it. These are Fresno peppers, and they're supposed to be kind of a smoky hot flavor, and looking forward to trying those. Now the pole beans planted along the fence line in this bed are Kelvedon Marvel runner beans, and hoping they do real well. I'm going to tie them to the fence above the level where the chickens could reach them from the other side, so hopefully it will work. These purple bearded irises are just some of the many that I divided last spring and planted all over my property to see where they would do well. They have done pretty well here, so I think I'm going to divide this clump and spread them out along the entire fence line a little bit later in the spring. Now in the bed next to this bed, I have nothing. It's ready for me to plant. I need to take out this dying, if not dead, alyssum. The one down here stayed alive, but that other one did not. Anyway, I've got some random garlic still in here. Probably pull that out. But I have a bed here empty and waiting for me to put my melons in. Gonna direct seed those today or tomorrow. Melons like full sun, and they definitely will get that right here. I've got a bunch of garlic planted in pots here. We'll see how that does. And next to this bed, I have weeds surrounded by logs. Yeah, I'm adding another bed. So I got the logs in place. I'm going to put some cardboard down here and then some, chicken manure and some collard greens and kitchen scraps. And then we'll put in the soil and compost, and we're having another bed right here. I believe this one's going to be corn, but I may give in and just plant more squash. I have so many types of squash that I want to try out, kind of weird ones and big ones, and I think I might just put that here. We'll see. Gonna happen this week though. And next to the future bed is more weeds that I need to deal with, and my wall and trellises. And along here I have planted Christmas lima beans. These were really pretty purple and creamy color large beans that they grow into what I call butter beans. Growing up, my grandmother used to make butter beans for us, and from what I understand, not everyone or not a lot of people like them, but I grew up with them and I love them. So I have planted them all along the back of this wall, which gets southern exposure, and I'm hoping they do well here, but it is an experiment. I haven't grown them before. I haven't grown any beans along here before. I've only grown sunflowers. Those 2 sad things are volunteers that I've tied up, but they were like lying on the ground. This bed is only recently weeded and planted because of my sickness the last couple of months. It has taken me a while to get on the ball with that kind of thing, and I'm still working on that, but that's okay. This is a very nice geranium. I say very nice because I love the color and because I don't have to do anything for this plant. It likes where it is and it keeps spreading, and I can easily take cuttings, and it just thrives here, and that's the kind of plant I like. Down at the end I have some dianthus that also does really well on its own, and some form of mint, some form of catnip, or maybe it's agastache. I don't know. It's in a little pot and it rooted in the ground and took off, and I won't know till it blooms. Then we'll see what it is. One of the things I always have every spring is volunteers. You're looking at a volunteer German chamomile, and I have these just everywhere. Wherever it comes up, it's welcome. I have moved a few of these plants, but it's generally best to transplant them when they're small, like 2 to 4 inches. So I was actually very surprised that the ones I transplanted did well. These I just left where they were, and I need to get busy harvesting them so they'll keep blooming. Chamomile tea is a fabulous tea, both delicious and healthy. Did a video on it recently, but boy, has it helped me through the coughing phase of the illness I had. And yeah, I just highly recommend you try that. You know, I'm going to try it cold, iced too, because I think that might be really good as we're moving into summer. All right, let's get into the beds now. Now, this is an orange tree that I have resuscitated from where it was growing before, where the rabbits decimated it out front and ate every single leaf off of it. It was just a bare stick, and I brought it back here and put it in a container and overwintered it, and this spring it has sent out a lot of new growth, so I'm pretty hopeful about it. This bed, I've got, well, a society garlic, and then in the middle there's a coreopsis plant, which sent out a lot of baby volunteer coreopsis. It's self-seeded, and I've taken most of them out, but there's a couple like that one still left in here that I need to decide where I want to move it, because this bed is definitely going to need more space for all the squash plants I've got in here. These are yellow crookneck, and I've got two planted in here so far. Oh no, I lied. There's a third. I think I'm going to plant one more in this corner though. We'll see. Right here I have what I was calling wild roses, but actually I found out they have a name, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Next to this bed I have a ton of volunteer borage. And this is a plant that the bees absolutely adore. The leaves can be eaten when they're young before they get prickly, and they taste kind of like a cucumber. Very healthy for you and extremely healthy for your soil. They are a dynamic accumulator. They have a super deep taproot that breaks up your soil and builds nitrogen in your soil. So really, I just had 2 little borage plants in this pepper bed last year, and I had about 10 pepper plants in here, which were super productive. But what has happened is that it's been overtaken, overrun, overwhelmed by borage. So what I'm going to be doing this week is taking all the borage out of the bed. I'm going to leave the volunteer borage that's between the beds because it's not really in my way. A lot of it is over there by my loquat and lime tree. However, the ones in the bed just have to go because I need to plant this bed up. I also need to deal with those Egyptian walking onions. Again, more on that in a little bit. But as you can see, there's definitely a lot of walking onions that need to be planted. And also, there's just too many in there. They're overcrowded and they look pretty bad right now. They're not. When I clean them up, they'll be great. But right there in the middle, we have a gazania plant that's getting pretty huge. I might take that out of there. We'll see how it looks once I get the borage out. So in this bed, I have 4 yellow crookneck squash on this side. You know, what's funny is that I did not plan to grow any yellow crookneck squash this year because I wanted to do a lot of other kinds of squash. So I thought I'm going to take a break from the yellow crookneck. But then in the end I said, well, I'll just plant 2, you know, just 2. Okay, so I did my seeds and everything. And you know how you always plant a few extra in case they don't make it. So I think I planted 6 or 7. Well, the yellow crookneck are the ones that did the best. I told you a lot of my seeds didn't make it. The yellow crookneck did the absolute best. So I ended up with like 6 or 7 plants. And you know, that is what it is. Yellow crookneck tastes good too. So we'll see how that goes. More walking onions. And then here are 2 more pepper plants. But I actually can't take credit for these. Look, it's actually sending up a little flower bud there. These are the red snacking peppers that produce hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I'm not even exaggerating, of very sweet, delicious, crunchy red peppers for us last year in this bed. And I only had 2 plants, and these self-seeded. I did move them a few inches so they'd be in better locations, but yeah, these were self-seeded, so I cannot claim credit for them. And in this middle bed next to the volunteer borage, I have some zucchini growing. I love zucchini, so my gardens will always have it. In the middle is a pot full of gladioli, which I'm looking forward to blooming. They're a peachy color and were so glorious last year. Along the other side is just bare soil, right? Well, I do have butternut squash planted there, but it has not come up yet. In fact, I direct sowed quite a few things about 10 or 11 days ago, and a lot of it hasn't come up yet. I was pleased to see, though, this morning, look, my Armenian cucumbers have come up all along the end here. I've got some wire on the ground. That's because I'm going to put in a couple of tea stakes and create an upright trellis here for those cucumbers. Armenian cucumbers, if you haven't had them, they're long, and if you don't stake them up, they get all curly on you, so that's why I'm going to stake them this year. And they are so delicious. I planted another row of them on the end of this bed, and I see one has come up anyway, so hopefully some more will come up in the next day or so. This bed here is full of tomatoes. Let's see, these are San Marzanos, and they were looking a little bit yellowish, but I can see now that the top is nice and green, so I think they're going to be just fine. This was my artichoke bed, and back in January, February, early March, this bed was full of artichokes. They were taller than me. They had many artichokes on the plants already. This has been my artichoke bed for 5 years now, and the same artichokes would come up and spread, and yeah, it's been great. Absolutely fantastic. Artichokes love it in this climate. However, this year they got attacked. Maybe just they aged out. I have heard that after 5 or 6 years, you really do need to start over with the artichokes. I don't know how true that is, and I blame myself for not, dividing them. I kept intending to divide them, and I didn't. But what happened was they basically were covered in that sticky stuff, just like glue, that the aphids and ants, one of them produces it, and the other one comes after. I think the ants farm the aphids or whatever. I've never really looked into it because I've never dealt with it on any plant before. But boy, these artichoke were just suffering. And it wasn't bringing me joy. And I decided a long time ago that in my garden, if it's not bringing me joy, I'm going to get rid of it. I might experiment with it for a little while if it interests me, but this did not interest me. Because what happened was the flies started coming to it. And that was like, okay, not happening. So I pulled all the artichoke out. I got most of the roots out, and I really didn't think artichokes would come back from what remained because I was pretty brutal with what I did. But look at this. Artichoke coming up there. Another one coming up there. I think I saw, yep, there's another one there. There's some coming up there. So it's like, it doesn't matter what I do, they're just going to keep coming up. I'll probably trim them down, knowing they'll come back again in the fall. Although as the tomatoes get bigger, they might shade them out. We'll see what happens. All right, over here, I've got another bed of tomatoes. These are Super Sweet 100s. And they're all doing fine. I do need to put some tomato cages on them. I was debating whether to do a trellis, but I've decided to do cages. I've got some big sturdy ones. These are doing well. Like the San Marzanos, the bottoms of these look pretty bad. You can still see they suffered when they went out. They did not like the weather. It was just bad, but look at this. The top looks great. And that's what's important. The bottom, I'm probably going to cut that off anyway. But this looks really good, nice and deep green. It's sending out flowers. So Super Sweet 100 cherries. I mostly grow cherry tomatoes because that's what we like to eat. And that produces the least problems. We don't get any diseases. They ripen quickly. We get a ton of them. So yeah, that's what I tend to do. Marigolds, of course, always help. Well, first of all, they help brighten up the garden. They're so cheerful. And also, they're a good companion plant for tomatoes. And maybe I shouldn't jinx it, but I have never seen a tomato hornworm in my garden here ever since I've started. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I hope it continues. Now, this is what looks like just bare soil, but finally yesterday, my corn has come up. I've got 3 rows of corn here, and it's come up all along the way. Can you see that? And it's about an inch, inch and a half out of the ground at this point. The row here at the bottom has come up the best, so hopefully the other rows will come up soon. There's 3 rows here. So maybe by next tour, we'll have a very visible 3 rows of corn for you to see. This is, I believe, Golden Bantam Improved. I have to look that up because I don't see a label here. I've been very careful about labeling everything, but for some reason, that one didn't get a label. I randomly have some tomatoes here and there in containers because they didn't all fit in the beds. This is a Sun Gold. Looking good and flowering. Sun Gold is probably my favorite tomato of all. It's orange tomato, a large cherry, and absolutely fantastic flavor. Now here in my back garden in the center, in the cement block garden bed, I have some more Sun Golds planted, 4 more, and they're all doing well too, with some marigolds, walking onions along the side here. And this side here, we've got some canna lilies. I planted them in the cement blocks last spring as an experiment, and they did well, and they've overwintered well, sending up lots of new shoots. I want to see if they're going to bloom this year. They didn't bloom last year, but they were really tiny, and I planted them late. And also, I had really, really tall tomato plants, probably 6.5, 7 feet tall, along the entire length here with a trellis, and they were pretty much shaded out. So I'm not doing that this year. I do have the tomatoes down here, but I'm leaving this open from shade. I am going to transplant a couple of thimbleberry plants here, because right now I've got some berries going on. I've got this Hinomaki gooseberry and a Captivator gooseberry, and then a bunch of strawberry plants. And you may wonder, why are your strawberry plants planted in those stackables that you have not stacked? Well, let me tell you what, I made a mistake. I consider myself a pretty smart person, you know, book smart, did well on tests, good grades and all that. And I thought I had common sense. But there is one area I've been very, very well aware that I'm weak on. It's kind of an odd area, and I just, weak is polite. I'm horrible at this area, and that is 3-dimensional spatial reasoning or awareness or something. So I first became aware of my problem with this when I took a test, I think when I was a senior in high school, that was for the armed forces. And, you know, I whizzed through the test. I was really good at tests. But I get to this one section, and I'll try to describe it. It had, like, it said, these are some 3-dimensional shapes. But it's like as if they were boxes, we've unfolded these shapes. And everywhere there's a fold is now a dotted line. We want you to look at this huge, weird-looking flat shape and on all these dotted lines, and in your mind, you know, put the shape back together, folding it along all these lines, and what shape do you end up with, you know? And then it would show you a selection of shapes. Oh my gosh, that just blew me away. I had absolutely no idea. My mind cannot wrap around that concept. It has come back to haunt me at times. Anytime there's dotted lines and I'm supposed to, in my mind, fold and imagine how it would look, I can't do that. So that was an issue. If there's written directions, that's fine. But not illustrated 3D. Yeah, no. So it came up again with the strawberries. How so? Well, so I planted them super carefully, you know, making sure to get the plants right at the edge so that when I stacked them, the one above wouldn't sit on the leaves of the ones below. And, you know, they all seemed to do really well. I wanted the berries to be hanging over the edges mostly, and that worked. And I stacked them all up, and it looked so awesome. I was like so proud of myself. You know, I know it's not brain surgery, but I thought, I did this. This looks great. Plus, I got a good deal because I got these for $1 each at the dollar store. No, I'm sorry, $1.25. Prices went up. And I remembered, of course, anytime you plant anything in containers, it has to have drainage. So I took my little soldering iron. It's the best way to make drainage holes in plastic. It just melts holes in them immediately. And so I put, 3 very strategically placed holes at the bottom of each of the strawberry plants in the plastic, and got that all ready. And I stacked them up, and they look so good. And I'm looking at it thinking, oh, what a great idea, they had for this. You just water the top, and because it's stacked, it goes all the way down and waters all the plants below it. And then I'm thinking, and I realize, whoa, this is not going to work because the holes are right under the plants. The water's going to drain through them, and it's going to drip right on top of the plant underneath it. And I'll tell you what, that might work if you live in a cooler climate. But here in Northern California, in my area where we get regularly all summer between 100 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit, you cannot get leaves even slightly wet anytime the temp is over 80, maybe even below that. The sun is so intense that if any leaves get wet at all, they just burn right up to a crisp immediately. So I can't be having water draining from the top plant onto the plant below it. It's just not going to happen. So I can't stack these. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, actually. I thought about, well, I could block up all the holes with something and then drill the holes right in the middle, and the water could go right down the middle, but that would defeat the purpose. That would not water the plant sufficiently enough, and also I'm not unplanting these. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, but learn from my mistake. Okay, I don't really know the answer to this, but yeah, if you know the answer to this, let me know. I'm curious. So next to the San Marzanos and the you are coming, aren't you? Armenian cucumbers, join your brother. Is this bed that I'm super excited about because, well, I was wondering if my seedlings were going to come up. I planted them on 4/14 and they took 10 days to come up. They're my Chinese long red noodle beans, but they did come up on day 10, and I am so happy about that. The first ones came up on day 10. Some of them are still coming up. So they're at different stages, but they'll all catch up. And Chinese long red noodle beans are a discovery I made a few years ago that I absolutely adore. They're super long and red, a crimson color. They are the most delicious green bean I've ever had. I say green bean because that's what they taste like. When you saute them, I use them a lot in stir fry, they turn green as you cook them. So strange. But anyway, I am really excited about this, and I have put in a trellis system. And yes, that is a tea stake with a long branch duct taped to it, and the branch duct taped all the way up to the wire. And it goes up about 6.5 feet tall. If I need to, I might even make it taller. No, I won't. I'll just loop the beans down or sideways or something. But yeah, I use duct tape because, to be honest, it worked really well, and I don't see the harm in it. It's very sturdy, and it's not like going to affect the plants at all. So why not? Maybe you say, well, it doesn't look that great. Well, you know what? My vegetable garden is mostly functional. It's mostly for what I can grow. And if this helps me grow more Chinese red noodle beans, then I am all for it. Also, it was super easy to do, and I think it's gonna keep the trellis strong, and that is important to me. So you can see I have covered the seedlings with a combination of whatever I could get my hands on. Some bent up hardware cloth and some upside down wire trash cans from the dollar store, which work super well. I just want to give these beans a head start, you know, protection from birds who love little seedlings. Once they get 3 or 4 inches tall, I'll remove all the cages and wire. Last year, this bed had lots of zucchini plants in it on this side, and the other side was cherry tomatoes, which they did all right, but that side does get afternoon shade, and the tomatoes I feel like needed more sun, so I didn't put them in this bed. Yeah, the chicken coop there creates some afternoon shade here. And I think that the beans will appreciate that, but the tomatoes didn't so much. The zucchinis, on the other hand, if you followed my garden tours last year here, were eaten down many, many times by the squirrels. The squirrels decided last year they love zucchini leaves. I ended up putting a tulle fence around it, and that's the only way I could stop them. This year I've gotten a little more creative. How do you like my pet dragon? I'm hoping this pet dragon scares away the squirrels, that they're like, what the heck is that? It does not look like an animal I want to mess with. That's my plan. So planted here this year is bush beans, Borlato bush beans, and they should be coming up soon. And I'm hoping they were planted several days after the Chinese red noodle beans. So hopefully by the next tour, they will be up. This square bed has some zucchini in it there, and my other yellow crookneck there, and my lavender osteospermum, African daisy there. That was a little 3-4 inch plant when I planted it. It gets huge, but it provides blooms all year long if you're in a warm region like me, so I love it. Along this side, I did plant some butternut seeds, which have not yet come up, just like the ones over here haven't come up. Getting a little worried, but I'm trying to hold the faith. We'll see. My loquat tree. This was another stick rescue. My dad brought it to me sort of as a stick, and I said, I think I can bring that back to life. And yeah, it's leafing out, so let's see how that does. Lime tree, sending out blooms. It suffered in the winter this year. We had a pretty cold winter. Actually, it was a very cold early spring. And this was not looking so great, but it's trying to come back now. We'll see how that does too. Hopefully the borage volunteers next to it bring in the bees and we get some limes. These amazing looking plants, so strong and full of blooms that are about to appear, and I just cannot wait because these are the most gorgeous flowers ever. These are safflowers. And I don't remember the variety. I'll look it up and put it on the screen, but it's a burnt amber kind of color, and they're just gorgeous, the textures of these flowers. And these are all volunteer. I grew a couple of plants here last year, and clearly they self-seeded and produced several plants. I have staked them up with some strong steel stakes, and because they needed it, they're super heavy already, loaded down with blooms. In this bed I have, again, some butternut planted. I really want to grow a lot of butternut this year. If these don't come up, all my butternut seeds in the next couple of days, I'm going to plant a bunch more. I've got another gazania plant there. Gazanias open as it gets hotter and the sun comes out more, so it's just starting to open. There's the first flower opening. They come in so many different colors, and I do have a lot of them. I've got a zucchini plant there and another one over there. And Swiss chard going to seed here. This is a really old plant. It's like 5 years old. I keep cutting off the blooms, even though they're beautiful, because I want to keep harvesting the Swiss chard. I mostly give Swiss chard to my chickens. They love it. But some people love it too, and I find it grows real well in the heat. So everyone, this video is going on a long time because I have a big garden. So I've decided I'm going to take this tour and divide it in half, and this is going to be the end of part 1, and I hope you will join me tomorrow for part 2, the second half of my back veggie garden. Yeah, I thought it would be better if it was in 2 different sittings where you can enjoy a morning coffee or maybe a lunch break with each of the different halves. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for part 2 of the April garden tour. Remember, you can create the life you want, so why not start right now?